Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind, presented by Souza Media, produced, presented, and you're talking to the owner and operator of Souza Media. I'm Kyle Souza. Thanks for joining us in this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind. We've got a lot to talk about on this episode of the podcast. There is a ton going on at the third mile. A lot of people wondering about what's going on Friday nights with no spectators allowed due to the restrictions from Massachusetts because of COVID-19. If you haven't seen the videos of the races, they're up. I encourage you to go watch them on our YouTube channel. You can also check them out as part of our Facebook channel to click in to the YouTube. I'm going to go through all the races from this past Friday, talk about what happened. We're going to have a couple special guests join us as well. Then, towards the end of the podcast, our last segment, we're going to talk about Saturday night competition. I know there's a lot of rumors, a lot of circulation going out about what has happened with the state and dealing with getting spectators in, what that may mean for Saturday night competition. I'm going to dispel all those rumors, give you the information that you want to hear, and I'm going to be joined by somebody that's going to really help one of the management here at the track to give us some inside information. But before we do all that, I want to talk about this past Friday night, the opener of the Everett's Auto Parts Diamond Dash. 3 races for all 5 divisions as part of Fast Friday. The Seekonk Grand Prix Bandoleros, the Bandits and the Outlaws, the Sport Fours, the Helger South Coast Pure Stocks, and the Nick's Pit Stop Legend Cars. This is a great program that Everett's Auto Parts has helped us put together. 30 laps for the Pure Stocks, the Legends, and the Sport Fours, and regular 15-lap distances for the Bandoleros. Since they're a little bit younger, they're used to that 15-lap distance. Now, the 30-lap races and the 15-lap races all paying a cash bonus to the top 3 finishers, a cold, hard cash bonus, courtesy of Everett's. Thanks to Roy and his gang over at Everett's Auto Parts for their support of the 2020 season and beyond and this Diamond Dash Series. And thanks to all of our track sponsors as part of the 2020 season. I mentioned Seekonk Grand Prix and Helger South Coast Power Equipment, great sponsors as part of our Friday night platform on Fast Friday. Before we get to anything about the racing in general, I just wanted to mention that this Diamond Dash Series is a 3-race event, and it's going to happen on 3 nights across Friday night. The other dates are coming up, one of them in August, one of them in September, and it's going to be a great showing for this Diamond Dash Series. It was a good start to it, and why don't we get into what happened this Friday night? July the 24th, we're talking about cleaner night than the first one. I think everybody came out on the 17th of July having not raced all winter, and they were anxious, to say the least, wanting to get back on the track. This one, a clean night. Coming out in Victory Lane, we had 5 winners on Friday night. Ryan Vanasse Jr., Isaiah Newcomb, A.J. Manuel, Jake Johnson, and Doug Benoit. Now, that's just an overall look at the feature winners. I'm going to go into each race, and we're going to start with the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits, and that's where we're going to get our first guest here in a minute. Before we introduce our guests, and there's actually going to be a couple of them, I want to talk about the Bandolero Bandits, a young, upcoming group of drivers here at Seekonk, sponsored by Seekonk Grand Prix. Running in these Bandoleros, they're young. Some of them are only 8, 9 years old, competing in this division. And on Friday night, we saw what we've seen a lot over the last couple of years with our Seekonk Youth Racing Association, even dating back to the Mini Cubs, first-time winners. And that's something, for me, you listen to me on the podcast, you see the stories I write as part of Souza Media, but you don't realize, some of you, that I'm also on the flag stand on Friday night. I work with Tim Bolduc, the race director, work with everything around Friday night racing as part of the race control on the flag stand. I love seeing these first-time winners. I love being down there in Victory Lane, watching them get out, the excitement that flows out of their face, their family, their friends, the screaming that goes on when they go to Victory Lane. It's just riveting for me. I want to start by talking about the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits with Ryan Vanasse Jr. picking up the win. They call him the Bottle Rocket. He takes down his first victory in the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits. What a drive by this kid. Of course, you know the Vanasse family. They've been around a long time. Paul Vanasse, Mike Vanasse, Ryan Vanasse Sr., I guess you want to call him now. And now Ryan Vanasse Jr., all visiting Everett's Auto Parts Victory Lane. Ryan Senior, Ryan Jr., now victors at the Third Mile Oval. Congratulations to Ryan Jr. On his dominant performance, man. He got out front early. There was a couple of small incidents at the beginning of that race, one of them taking out Week 1 winner Brody Monahan, who unfortunately was not able to finish the race and not able to rebound from his win the week before and try to make it 2 for 2. There was a couple other guys that struggled as well as part of this one. But Ryan Vanasse Jr. takes the lead on lap number 2 and literally just drives away with this. He was so fast compared to the rest of the field. A dominating performance by him. Congratulations to Ryan Jr. And again, that emotion, how ecstatic he was, his hands out the window, just a thrilling victory lane ceremony for him with dad down there, mom, his sister down there. This is just a riveting experience for these Bandolero kids to really climb out in victory lane and just smell victory and sense it. Well, without further ado, let's bring in our first guest, who's going to be part of two guests. We're going to talk to both Ryan Vanasse and Ryan Vanasse Jr. about this win on Friday night and what this means to them to pick up their first career win. I mean, just as much as it's Ryan Jr.'s first win on the Bandoleros, it's Ryan's first win as a dad at Seekonk, and I think that's a big factor of this too. Let's talk to them about their feelings about this past Friday night. All right, I mentioned it before the break. We're bringing back in the Vanasse family, two of them at least. There's a lot in the Vanasse family, and a lot of them have competed at Seekonk over the years. Tonight we've got the honor of speaking with Ryan Vanasse and Ryan Vanasse Jr., and I guess for these purposes, he's not too old, but I guess I'll call him senior for these purposes. Let's start with Ryan Jr., though. Ryan, you picked up your first win in the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits this past Friday night. A win I know that was obviously a long time coming for you. You've been trying for at least a year and a quarter now. Take me through that moment when you crossed onto the finish line. I think you're one of the first drivers I've seen in a Bandolero to cross the line with your hand out the window. That's how excited you were. I mean, take me through that moment of going to victory lane.
I just always wanted to be my dad, just to go to victory lane and just celebrate with my dad. I knew he was going to be like emotional when I won.
Oh, he was. Believe me, I saw it firsthand. So let's talk to Ryan Sr. I mean, you're probably still emotional, right? This is a couple days later now. I mean, we're talking on a Monday. The podcast goes out on a Tuesday. So take me through that emotional moment of especially the last couple laps, knowing how far ahead he was, and the excitement of knowing that it was probably going to be the night to take the first win.
Yeah, I was just so proud of him. He watched a lot of tape from opening day, and we talked through some of the mistakes that he had made the week before. And, before the race, I told him, all I want to do is have fun tonight and just work on those two issues that we talked about from the week before. And I said, if you do that, you have a really good shot at winning. So, real proud moment that he took to the coaching and he listened. And then, obviously, once he got out front, I was just very, very eager for it to end, hoping for no yellows. And I was standing next to my brother the entire time. We're standing next to each other. And when he was coming up on lap traffic, I was getting really nervous. And he was just never backing down. He had such a lead. I don't think he realized what kind of a lead he had. But I always tell him, just keep going. Don't back down. So he listened again, which was a great thing. But so proud of him, how hard he's worked. Colin, my nephew, they've both been working so hard on and off the track. In the garages, they'll work on the cars, but they spend a lot of time watching film, practicing with the iRacing, and they've come so far. But it's funny, Mike Brightman sent me a text. He filmed the last two laps of me and my brother in the stands, and don't realize how much of a bad bystander I am. I was jumping up and down and moving around, and I think the best way to put it is in racing, the highs are high, the lows are low. So the beginning of the video has me jumping up and down and hugging my brother. And as we walk away, kicking the fence because Colin had just got spun out coming out of turn 4. So for my son winning to my nephew getting spun out of 4th place, highs are high, lows are low. And that's part of racing, So really special. I think I got more phone calls, texts, and congratulatory emails from this win than I have of any of my own.
Yeah, that's so cool. And yeah, a lousy situation, right, to watch your son win and your nephew crash coming to the checker. So you're right, the high, the low. Ryan Jr., what has these first couple weeks been like? I mean, obviously we're a couple months delayed now, but how excited are you to win and get that off your back after trying for so long?
It's only been like a year and 2 days.
Oh my goodness, he's ready.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan Sr., why don't we end with you? And let's talk about the whole 2020 season so far. Obviously, it's been affected from your racing, but just talk about what this has been like in this last year and a quarter to teach him. I mean, obviously, this moment is the highlight, right? But it's got to be so cool to watch your nephew and now your son go out there together. Never mind competing with each other, but just at this level. To have fun with them on a Friday, and then we're going to get to it later in the podcast. But your Saturday night racing is kind of going to be parked for your perspective, at least here for a little bit. So this is kind of, I guess, the only racing excitement per se you're getting at Seekonk. So this is going to be extra special.
It is. As much of a racer and how much I love to be out on the track competing, for me, this makes it a lot easier being able to race with my son and my nephew every week. So almost kind of welcome the break because really enjoying, watching the transition of Ryan and Colin and how well they're doing. And, we'd like to continue to get them more seat time, and continue to watch them grow. So I'm okay, with slowing down. I think I said that in a prior podcast. And as long as that they continue to put the hard work in and continue to enjoy the sport, I'm okay with backing down a little bit and doing more with them. So been a lot of fun. It's still been a busy off season, if you will, summer, trying to get everything ready. Our race cars are ready to go. So if we got the green flag tomorrow, we could go racing. But again, we've been working hard on their stuff, trying to make it better every single week. I think Ryan's proved time and time again that he has the speed. And this past Friday, he showed that he can put a complete race together and pull it off. So I'm excited to see him, the rest of the year challenge for more wins. I'm excited to see Colin challenge for wins. And, at the end of this year, what a success for us will be both boys just having fun, hopefully both win races and just being competitive every single week.
Yeah, that's important. I think a lot of families feel the same way, especially in the Bandoleros. Ryan Jr., I'm ending with you. One question, and I think it's going to be a very brief answer from you. Are you ready to win more races now that you got one done?
Yeah, I'm ready to win more races and a championship also.
A championship. Wow, he's ready. Ready to take it to the next level. Guys, thanks for a couple minutes. Appreciate it very much, and we wish you guys the best of luck in the Bandoleros, and hopefully Ryan will be on the track yourself, but thanks for taking a couple minutes for us, and congrats again to both of you on win number one of, I'm sure, many.
Kyle, thank you. We're excited to see everybody on Friday nights and soon to be Saturdays as well.
All right, that's been Ryan Vanasse Sr., Ryan Vanasse Jr. Thanks for them for joining us. When we come back here, we're going to talk about the Sport 4, the Outlaw Division, and we got a whole slew of things coming up. Stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, on to the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Outlaws, their second race of the season. Of course, a week earlier, we had seen Reese Bogue come up from the Bandits. His first outlaw race, picked up the win after winning the Bandit title last year. Ryan Vanasse Jr. and the Bandolero Bandits. In the Outlaws, it was Isaiah Newcomb picking up his first win of the season. Congrats to Isaiah. Really another dominating performance. We saw a little bit of an issue at the beginning. Nick Chaber Jr. Started up there in the front row with Sam Dell. They got together racing for the lead. Dell went around. She had to settle at the rear. I think she ended up finishing I can't remember now. I think it was 7th or 8th she ended up finishing. While Newcomb, similar to Ryan Vanasse Jr., took the lead early. He took the lead at lap 4, and he dominated this one. Won it by over 3 seconds in that Newcomb Tree Service number 22. A strong run for him in his second race of the 2020 campaign. So it's Isaiah Newcomb who wins it. Nick Chaber Jr. From the pole, strong run again for him. Second week in a row, he finishes second. Steve Bowden does a phenomenal job in that number 64. I think that might be his best career Bandolero finish. And if it's not, it definitely ties it. A third place effort for him. Gio Ruggiero finishing fourth in the number 7. And then Bogue, who won the first race of the year, rounded out the top 5. So congrats to Isaiah picking up his first win of the year. Of course, his father, Paul, is no stranger to Seekonk either. Former street stock competitor, a late model competitor, winner here last year at Seekonk in the late models, and then also in the Nick's Pit Stop Legend Cars on a weekly basis. He's a competitor there too. So the Newcomb family knows their way around. They obviously know their way to victory lane. This is not Isaiah's first Bandolero win. He picked up at least one last year, I think a couple. So congrats to him on returning to victory lane. After the Bandolero Outlaws, actually before the Bandolero Outlaws on the track, was the Sport 4 division. Their first race of the Everett's Auto Parts Diamond Dash Series. And for the second week in a row, A.J. Manuel picks up the win. And there's a funny story around A.J. Manuel and me. When I was announcing back 2 or 3 years ago when he first started racing, I read his name and called him Alexander Manuel. That's simply because that's how it reads, Alexander Manuel. Sure enough, it's A.J. Manuel. That's what he likes to be called. So A.J. Manuel, albeit, picks up the win. First race of the Diamond Dash, slow start, couple wrecks at the beginning of this one, a couple faulty mechanical failures, I think it was a couple flat tires. Chuck McDonald, I know Crystal Murray had a flat under green running up in the top 5 or 6. But this race, after about lap 8 or 9, when there was a couple yellows, it pretty much goes green to the end. And it really sets up an interesting battle for the race win. You had Manuel, who started way back in the 9th position, trying to get to the front. And this division is full of guys that are strong. There are no slouches, really, at the front of this Sport 4 field. And really, give or take any of the field, there's a bunch of competitive drivers. Manuel comes from back in 9th, gets up inside the top 5 by the time the field hits at lap 9. Into the 5th position, and then when the race goes green to the end, he's really got to get on the charge. Early in the race, you had some other drivers up front before Sam Mizik gets up there to the lead, and he takes over the lead. Mizik does on lap number 7 and leads it until lap 27. So a 20-lap stint, and he's out front. He's pulling away from the field. Nice, comfortable 1 second or so lead. Then he starts hitting lap traffic, and Manuel gets up to second, looking for his second straight win. You know he was on a roll, trying to get it. As soon as they cross under the halfway, Manuel's up to second. And I looked, at the lineup at that point at halfway. I'm watching while I'm giving the halfway signal, and I'm like, yeah, the 38 CT's out there far enough. It's going to be tough for anybody to catch him. He might be en route to his first Seekonk win as a first-timer. But I was wrong. A.J. Manuel, that car was so strong in the feature. He just took that big arc down the front straightaway and the back straightaway, dove off into the corners, and closed into the bumper. A little bit of lap traffic in front of the leaders, like I talked about, and it was the 29 of Jared Bygos in front of them. And Manuel kind of gets under the 29, trying to make it 3 wide for the lead. The 38 CT went to the outside. Emmanuel ends up in the lead here, coming to 3 laps to go. He leads the final 3 and picks up his second straight win to open the Sport 4 season. Not bad for a guy that wasn't going to run the whole year. He's come out, won the first week with a car he threw together in a couple days, and then come out, won the second week as well from the the middle of the field starting. So congrats to AJ. Strong run. Mizik was second. Good run for him, too. A really dominating performance in the middle of that race. I'm sure he's going to get a win. Mikey Lafour, who finished second, week 1, finishes third. Carwin Levesque fourth. And Tyler Duhanchik, another strong run for Tyler, who's having a great start to the season, rounding out the top 5. I mean, this Sport 4 division puts on a great show. 22 of them showing up on Friday night. A race that took about 15 minutes to run for 30 laps. Good show, good race, and really looking forward to watching them get back on the track next week. They're also going to be part of our Saturday night program in a couple of weeks. Again, I'll get to that at the end. If you're listening to the podcast and you want to hear about Saturday night racing, skip ahead a little bit, but I'll get you more of an update here in a bit. But that's it for the Sport 4s. It's AJ Manuel picking up the second straight win. Now that we've done the Sport 4s, we talked about both Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandit divisions. Let's talk about the Pure Stocks. In a race where a former champion returns to victory lane. A lot of people listening know that Scott Custodio, returning as a former champion, won week 1. Week 2, he was up there. Some contact, he ended up at the rear at some point during that race. Didn't finish fantastic, but still had a strong run. In the Pure Stocks this week, though, it is Doug Benoit picking up the win. His first of the year, a former champion. He won in 2018 in dominating fashion. But Benoit, in a race that took almost half hour to complete, a little bit of a rough race for the Pure Stocks this week. There was a little bit of a wreck down the back straightaway when Marissa Morgan spun out, was facing the wrong way, kind of turned it back straight, and then Justin Rio hit her. Heavy damage to both those cars. They both had to be towed off, so there was a little bit of a delay there. A couple other small delays in this one, so that's why it was a little bit longer of a race, but albeit a great battle up front. I mean, I've been talking about it for a couple days now. But you got guys like Doug Benoit, Danny Massa, Greg Perry, Scott Custodio, Joey Morissette, Jeremy Lambert, Mike Henricks. These guys are really just racing with their hearts out. They race clean most of the time, at least. They race hard. They're good friends. They really put on a great show for a pure stock division. So if you have not seen the video, I really suggest you go to our YouTube channel and watch this past Friday's race because it was a thriller in my book. And Doug Benoit comes away with the win. He wins it by about 3/4 of a second over Danny Massa. And it was clear early that Doug had one of the faster cars on the track. I mean, if you look back at the practice speeds and the time session, he was the fastest car by a good chunk in the time trial session. And then he goes out in the feature. He doesn't start right at the front. I mean, it's not like he dominated the whole race. He started way back, I believe, in the 5th row. So he had to really work his way to the front. But it didn't take him long. He got into the top 5 by lap 4, got to 2nd on lap 10, and then went after Danny Massa in a hard-fought battle for that lead. They were really pushing it. There was a little bit of contact, some rough racing. Maybe from a fan's perspective, it was thrilling, but these guys were really going at it, grinding, pushing with everything they've got, but they did it pretty cleanly. They didn't spin each other out. Might have been a little contact here and there, but it was a good show. And in the end, Benoit comes away with the win. He passes Massa on lap number 18. Massa tried to get him back, just couldn't quite do it. Not quite enough under the hood this week for Massa. Sure, they'll get that car a little bit faster before next week. But Benoit returns to victory lane in the pure stocks. A familiar place for him. And nice to see a former champion get back to the winner's circle in this division. But there is going to be, I think, at least one first-time winner this year in that class. Joey Morissette was strong again. He's going to get his first win eventually. Mike Hendricks was strong again this week, but had a problem early. He led all the way through lap number 9 from the green, was second on lap 10, and then he's 14th. He had to go in the pit area after a little bit of an extended slowdown for that wreck down the front straightaway. The back straightaway when they had that. Really, it was a red flag, but we stayed under yellow. All the cars stopped. And I guess he ran out of gas in first or second. I can't remember exactly where he was at that time. So he ended up pitting and didn't finish too great. Lost at least 2 laps on pit road, putting some fuel in that car. So, again, Benoit wins the pure stock feature. Massa second. Greg Perry third. Sestodio, after getting spun early, comes back up to 4th. And Jeremy Lambert, good run for him. He finishes in the 5th position. Now let's get to I guess you call it the main event of the Diamond Dash on Friday night, the final race of the night, the Nick's Pit Stop Legend cars. They put on a good show as well. The first week, it's no secret, I think, to anybody listening and anybody that watched it. It was pretty much a mess, the first week of Legend Racing. The 25-lap race the first week took like an hour. There was a lot of carnage, a lot of wrecked equipment, not great racing. A lot of guys were too rough on the track. And we're going to talk to Saturday night flagman, but Friday night race director Tim Bolduc here after this segment about what maybe changed this week, because the Legends race was good this week, man. They put on a good show. I didn't see really any problem with it. It took like 25 minutes, same type of thing though. There's a couple wrecks where they had to be towed off. But for a 30-lap race, they did a pretty good job as far as I'm concerned. The racing for the lead was good all throughout the field, really. Early on, Jake Johnson had that struggle week 1 where he was leading most of the race, ended up losing it, ended up hitting a couple other cars. They spun around late. So there was some background there for Jake to try to come back, and he gets redemption in that number 15. Johnson picks up the win, and he does it pretty much in dominating fashion in my book. I mean, he started outside the top 8 and works his way all the way up inside the top 5 by lap 2, and then gets all the way to the lead by lap 10 and never looks back. So that number 15, the black and white machine, was clearly the fastest car in the field on Friday night. I think it was probably the fastest car in the field in week 1, too. It just never really worked out for him. Of course, he lost the lead weight, some contact, whatever the case. Talking about week 2, it's all Jake Johnson. Big win for him in his return to the Legend cars this year. He's run pro stocks at Seekonk and won, run late models at Seekonk and won. He's ran with the American Canadian Tour, the Pro All-Star Series, but a good job by him to get back to victory lane in a Legend car where I know he has a lot of fun. Luke LeBrun, second. Luke led some laps early. Strong run for him. He wrecked the week before, comes back for a second. Reagan Parent, another good run. Was in contention for the win week 1. Didn't get it. He was involved in that last lap skirmish as part of the week 1 race. But week 2, he finishes 3rd. Connor Holderbach 4th. And Jordan Churchill in the top 5 in 5th. So good Legends race this week. Not much trouble on the track. I know Tim Bolduc talked to them in the drivers' meeting about giving some respect, helping each other out. I think the thing that a lot of people don't think about You see a Legends race that took an hour and there was a lot of wrecks. You throw it all on the drivers. It might not be all on the drivers, strictly because there's a mix of guys in this division that are newcomers to racing, like our week one winner, Wade O'Mackey, who had really only driven 4 Legends races before he won the first week. And then you've got guys that have been out there racing different cars and come back to Legends, like Jake. And then you've got guys that have been in these Legend cars for a while and enjoy racing them, like Brandon Hammond, Mason Tessie are getting up there, and John O'Sullivan's been as part of the Legends for many years now. So a mix of drivers kind of probably worked into that week one thing. They're trying to fill each other out. It was a little rough, don't get me wrong. You hope that doesn't happen down the line. But Tim Bolduc also talking to these guys in the drivers' meeting about respect, about giving room, about cutting each other a break once in a while. And that old phrase, you can't win on lap one, I think it proves true for this division. So let's get Tim Bolduc in here. Let's talk to him about what happened and see what he may have said to them or why he thinks this division did so well in week 2 compared to week 1. All right, welcome back to the Race Day Rewind. Let's welcome in our race director segment of the week. Last week we talked to Lenny Ellis about what went on with the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandoleros. Tonight, on this edition, we're going to talk to Tim Bolduc, the Friday race director who patrols the Bandoleros with Lenny, but also patrols the Sport 4, Pure Stock, and Legends. And Tim, the first couple of weeks of Fast Friday definitely been different with no fans. But from a race director perspective, have you even really noticed that there's no fans in the stands? I mean, has it changed at all for you?
No, for me personally, it doesn't really affect my job. I'm 110% focused on the racetrack. But, I think you kind of notice it in the drivers a little bit when they do their victory lane interviews, how kind of it's not the same for them. So I feel bad for those guys. But for me, I do my job the same whether we have fans or not.
So the 2020 season's obviously been completely messed up with the COVID pandemic. We're going to talk a little bit, actually in the next segment, about Saturday night racing. But these Legend cars were a little bit of a handful. Put it that way. In week 1 of Fast Friday, we had some over-aggressive drivers, and I think I classified it as a mess in the last segment because there was really no other way to put it. When you see a race like that, I mean, is there really anything you can do in the middle of the race that's going to change what's going on other than simply just ending it?
No, I wish there was something I could do because as a race director, it's frustrating to see those guys out there tearing up equipment that costs them a lot of money. And if we did have fans in the stands, they don't want to see that stuff going on. So when we had our drivers meeting this past Friday night, we touched on some stuff. Basically how we have drivers that are a lot younger and drivers that are a lot older, and the experience in the division is quite different. We have guys getting out of Bandoleros and jumping into Legend cars, and then we've got guys that have been driving Pro Stocks and late models, and they're driving Legend cars, and we've got guys that have been driving Legend cars forever. And then you throw the fact that the Legends have new tires on them this year that the drivers are trying to get used to. And first week out was, everybody had the bug. They just wanted to get out there and race. We talked about, respect, and, if it's not your night, it's not your night. Save it for next week. Don't tear somebody else up just to get one more spot. And I think after the conversation that we all had in the drivers meeting, I think that it got through to a lot of guys, and hopefully it'll help, and hopefully it'll carry on the rest of the year.
Well, I hope so, and I think a lot of the drivers hope so as well. Before we let you go, let's just talk about those other divisions for a second. We talked about them a lot here in the podcast, but what are you seeing out of the Sport 4, the Pure Stocks? Lenny talked last week about how great the Bando races have been, but what are you seeing out of the Sport 4 and Pure Stocks? Seems to me, from my perspective on the flag stand, we're seeing that respect, and we've seen some good racing.
Yeah, the Sport 4s, in my opinion, have always been the race of the night. Those guys go out there and, for the most part, they race clean. They always have close to a full field, and cautions are very minimal in that division. And they go out there, they race hard, they do it clean, they respect each other, they put on a great show. Pure Stocks, I mean, they're the same way. They go out there, they put on a great show. The car count isn't as high in the Pure Stocks, unfortunately, but I still think they do a great job. Put on a great show for the people that are watching, and hopefully someday we'll get fans back in the stands and they'll be able to appreciate it too.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Tim, I want to thank you for a couple minutes for this week's edition of the Race Day Rewind and the Race Director segment. And Look forward to seeing you on a Saturday night here in the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's been Tim Bolduc. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Saturday night season, kind of dispel some rumors, knock some of the rumors out, talk about what's actually going to happen, and yeah, a confirmed Saturday night schedule has been released. Don't be alarmed. A confirmed Saturday night schedule is out there now. We'll be right back with a quick update on that. All right, we're here for our last segment of this week's Race Day Rewind. We've got a lot to talk about in this segment. A lot of you have been listening to the podcast, waiting to get to this segment, and for good reason. Let's talk about the Saturday night and what's going on here so far in 2020, and what's coming up here over at least the next month. I've got Ed St. Germain and Dave Alburn here with me as we sit around the round table this morning. Let's start with Ed. This situation from a track perspective has been lousy, I guess is the best way to describe it. The season delayed. The schedule was so much anticipation around the 75th year. No fans to start. No fans at least in the next couple weeks. Let's talk about the struggles from a track perspective of what this has been like to go through.
The struggle has been real, to say the least. We started off with a great schedule, a powerhouse schedule, probably one of the best schedules we've had in years, and especially for the Southern New England racing scene coming into 2020. When this thing started to hit, it looked like it would be going away, so we had optimism. We had a lot of good faith talks with the state, moving down the line, moving through different phases of when we'd be reopening. And as this pandemic kind of took hold and started really shaping things, it looked like things are going for the worse, and it did. It's been a real hardship for us as far as the track goes. It's not running with our fans. We're a front gate driven track. We have one of the best attendances in New England. Our thrill shows are some of the biggest attended motorsports events in New England. Our Saturday night racing is great, and our Fast Friday program. We have 3 specific things, and we're missing a lot of these shows. Just 2 weeks ago now, we just opened up with Fast Fridays. We rained out our first event, very fitting for 2020. But our car counts have been off the charts for Fast Fridays, as well as the families that are coming in to support their teams. So it's been as good as we can do, making chicken salad out of chicken bleep, basically.
Yeah, and I mean the 2020 season. So those of you that are listening, if you haven't seen the announcement, Saturday night racing been delayed at least till August 1st for a while there. Now we're gonna have a practice on August 1st this coming Saturday, and then start racing on the 8th with the late models, the trucks, the sportsmen, blanking on that, the spectator drags, and then we'll have the Sport 4s in moving up from Friday. Why don't we talk about Friday nights before we get to the full deal on Saturday night? I mean, Friday night's been in the books. You mentioned 2 weeks, good car counts. It seems to me like it's been overall successful, but I mean, the biggest part is missing those great fans.
It is. We're missing about 700 to 1,000 fans a week that would normally be coming into the front gate, and they're here to support their young drivers and their Fast Friday drivers in the Sport 4s, Legends, Pure Stocks, and our Bandolero program. It's been good. The racing's been great. It's been great to see cars back on the track. The drivers are having fun. The competition is great. The first week was a little touch and go, as it usually is in the first week of racing. The second week, they kind of found their groove, found their stride, and they've been put on some great shows. But it's been good. There's been enough support to continue moving forward with Fast Fridays right now, from the track standpoint, as far as teams coming in and teams supporting the track. So that's been great.
So Friday night racing without fans, and now the announcement coming out yesterday they're going to start racing Saturdays. Unfortunately, albeit again without fans, and without our top tier division. Dave's going to talk about that in a minute. But what are the struggles of running with no fans? I mean, it seems logistically, the casual fan might look at this and say no fans, no big deal. But from a track perspective, this is a big hit to not have those fans coming through. And never mind that, me being on the flag stand, it's definitely changed the feeling, a little bit of an eerie feeling on Friday nights.
It's definitely a weird feeling on Friday nights and on Saturday nights. And on Saturday nights, our intention was never to run without fans. That's been our stance from the get-go of this thing, that we're going to be moving forward with fans. We have tried every single thing possible dealing with the state. We're talking hours of discussions and emails and countless emails and phone calls and back and forth of trying to get reasonings as to why, and it's a frustrating situation. But right now we are in phase 4, which puts us in a professional sports category with the New England Patriots and the Red Sox and other like-minded venues, and they're simply not budging on that. So it's a frustrating thing. Without the fans in the stands on Saturday nights, it's going to be challenging and difficult. But we do feel that our racers deserve to be on the track and participating in the sport that they love. It's something that we're committing to giving it a shot for these next 4 weeks in August and see how it goes. And we're going to be working with that. We're going to hopefully work towards getting pro stock stuff out on the track in September and October. But for right now, the schedule we put together would consist of the sportsmen, the late models, our truck divisions. We're going to mix in our Friday night divisions. We're going to have some spectator drag events. We're going to try and get everybody who races at the Speedway involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and getting Saturdays going is going to be important. Again, that coming up here on August 8th. And we'll turn to Dave here with, I think, the question that a lot of people want the answer to from a track perspective. The announcement comes out, Pro Stock's not on the card, a division that's been around since the late 70s and is really the staple of Seekonk. So the reasoning from a track perspective for not having the Pro Stocks, just simply the purse is really actually a very good purse for the division in place, but the overall reasoning is it might just be a little bit too high for us to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. We value all our teams, and we know the investments are high in all our cars that compete here, and the Pro Stocks are a very large investment they put into it. And we knew going into this epidemic that we were in that we didn't want to get into any type of reduce purses for our competitors. So trying to make something work with what we currently have that can make revenue stream still produce something that can make this work going forward. We had to do something with one of the divisions in the Pro Stocks was that. And again, didn't want them trying to run for a reduced purse, something that just wouldn't make sense on their part. We know some teams would like that, but overall it just wouldn't be the right thing to do.
Yeah, and let's talk about the payouts for the other divisions. I mean, we've got the Everett's Auto Parts late models, the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Sportsman, and the newly named Chaz's Auto Body Trucks in 2020. So what about their purses? Is that going to be cut? It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like those purses are going to stay the same as well and bring the competitors in what they were getting last year.
Absolutely. They'll remain the same. We're still looking at options. Maybe we can bump a little bit in there for some added, revenue changes on our part, or some sponsors that want to jump in there. But definitely no changes on that purse. Definitely, they need the money income to support their teams to race what we have for remainder of the season. So we want to keep everything going forward the same.
So we've got Saturday night racing through August, starting on the 8th all the way down through the 29th. And Ed mentioned the Friday night divisions in there too. We're going to evaluate this, I guess, on a month-to-month basis here and see how things go. But what about the points for a Saturday night season? I mean, Friday with their Diamond Dash, they've got 12, 13 races. That's a different scenario, but only 4 in August and hopefully a whole slate in September too. What's the situation like with the points for Saturday night? Are they going to be running for a championship, or is this kind of just a go-for-win season?
Well, still not knowing what the season's going to bring. Things could still change in a heartbeat, go in a different direction with the state. So trying to get into a championship season for anybody, it's going to be tough because you can't commit to it. We want to get races out there for our racers to compete in, get to dial in and work on some new equipment they have in there or some updated cars. So get some races out there, have some fun, work on a point system, similar something to what we're doing on Fridays, even though they are working and racing for a championship, but something off lap times to establish our qualifying heats, do a straight up from there with an invert, and just race each week from there. Not looking at a handicap system at all. And keep it simple, keep it fun for all. Just try to make something out of this season as we wait to get past and get into 2021.
Yeah, so you covered my next question about the Saturday night season, and I think the last question really, and I want to ask both of you this. Let's give David a break. Start with Ed. This 75th year has been, in all intents and purposes, a mess with the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, how do you want this year to be remembered? I mean, obviously, every business is in this situation, but you look at the 75th year, what are we trying to do in the next 2 or 3 months that 10 years from now somebody's going to say, wow, they managed to pull that off in that season?
Well, we're going to have our diamond day. First of all, I want to thank the 200 and plus teams that we have registered for the year. I mean, the commitment that we've had through the off season and people still registering now has been phenomenal. The support is awesome. We appreciate it, and we look forward to hopefully having all 200 cars back on the track as soon as possible between Fridays and Saturday nights. As far as remembering this season, I'd rather not. I'd rather put it behind us. It was something that happened. It's a hopefully it's a blip in our history of humankind, and hopefully we all get past this as a society, and we get to move forward. Hopefully 2021 we can kind of bring back all of the things that we had on the schedule, and hopefully that all works for all of the big events that we had scheduled for our 75th anniversary, and we can kind of celebrate that just a year late.
Yeah. And Dave, how about you? I mean, you've been around this track longer than anybody in the office this morning, and probably longer than most. But how do you remember this year? I mean, this is going to be the craziest year you can remember. I mean, we've had some crazy years with action on the track, dating back to years where there was a constant in just about every division, and there was might even been a crazy finish in every division. We've had some great races over the last couple of years. I look back at what the late models have done and amazed by what they've done, the sportsmen, the trucks, and the pro stocks too. How do you kind of sum up this year?
Well, I can remember back only so far, but I know my grandfather went through his ups and downs in the seasons, and had some really tough seasons to get through with economy situations. And remember, he had some strikes on some of the divisions, and boy, I'm sure he never thought of something like this ever happening. But definitely, I look at it as we didn't quit. We kept trying and looking at ways how we could get this season going. Even dealing with the town and dealing with the state, trying to figure out what direction we could go. Kept having plans and schedules put together ahead of time for each time we thought we could make that move. But it kept getting pushed back. But again, we didn't quit. We came out with something on the Fridays. We came out with something on the Saturdays. We want to get something out on that track and get it out there for our competitors, and hopefully we're going to get it out there for our fans.
All right. So, again, if you haven't seen the announcement about Saturday Night Racing, check out the Facebook page, the website, with practice coming up here on August 1st, and then we've got racing on the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. Staple every week will be the Everett's Auto Parts late models, the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Sportsman, again, the newly branded Chaz's Auto Body trucks, and the Troy City Tactical Spectator drags, and then adding a Friday division in each week as well, starting with the Score 4s on the 8th, and we'll get through all those Friday divisions, including the Bandoleros, the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandoleros on the 15th. So want to thank Ed and David for sitting down for a few minutes. I think we've answered a lot of the questions that some of you may have. Hoping to see most of you at some point in 2020. If you're a fan, we hope to get you back to the stand soon. And I guess that's it for this week's edition of the Race Day Rewind. Talk to you next week, and look forward to next week's racing as part of Fast Friday on the Practice Saturday. Check out our YouTube channel, social media. Even on Saturday, we'll have some stuff going up from Saturday practice to get you a look at what's going on in the pit area. So for now, I'm Kyle Souza. Thanks to Dave, thanks to Ed, and we'll talk to everybody next week.